Hi, and welcome to our first episode of The Green Room. I'm your host, Jeff Faragher, Music and Artistic Director of Symphony of the Kootenays. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button below to stay up to date with all of our content. You can also head over to our website, sotk.ca/greenroom, to see a listing of shows and guests that we'll have on. If by the end of this episode you've enjoyed what you've seen, please hit that like button below to let us know. There's also a comment section, which we will be checking. So if you have any comments or ideas for future episodes, we're happy to hear them. It's been about a year since Symphony of the Kootenays has been on stage, and it's been a tough year for all musicians. Symphony of the Kootenays has been still working hard behind the scenes and looking forward to the opportunity to being back on stage very soon. Until then, we thought we would release this web series. We can connect with our musicians, connect with you, our audience, and discuss all kinds of music-related topics. We're going to be interviewing musicians of the symphony as well as hearing them perform. Tonight is a special episode, as it's our first, and we're going to start our first episode inviting our concertmaster, Svetozar Vutev, to join us. He's going to be discussing his life in music, his move to Canada, his move to BC, and his career since then here in the interior of BC. So we're going to now at this time welcome Svetozar Vutev. Hi, Svetozar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to see you in your studio. I normally see you on stage in a concert hall, and that's the first time actually I can visit your studio thanks to the technology.
Exactly. Yeah. COVID's been sort of fun for getting to see people's homes a little bit more than just in our studios and on the stage. Great. So how have you been keeping this year, sort of since we've seen each other just about a year ago?
Yes. Life's quite different now for everyone, but life is good too. There are so many other things to do than the usual stuff. Of course, we're missing public performances on stage. That's for sure. But there's a lot of teaching happening. More people sign up their kids for lessons and music lessons, which is great. And also adults, they want to learn music, and that's wonderful. But we are trying to do video recordings with certain orchestras functioning in the province, and trying our best to keep the music alive.
So for those of our audience or listeners today who maybe don't know you as well as others, of course, you have quite a colorful and vibrant history, even before immigrating here to Canada. And I'd just love if you can, I know this is like a whole show unto itself, but it'd be great if you could just summarize some of the highlights and just tell us a little bit about that journey that brought you to be here in BC, Canada.
Yeah, that's a long journey indeed. I don't want to keep everyone occupied with my personal stories. They're very long, and probably just a few highlights is mentioned. I was born in a small city, relatively small, in a small country in southeastern Europe, Bulgaria. And in the city, it was small, but there was a symphony orchestra and an opera company. So I was lucky, and a music school, like a government-supported music school, full time. I was lucky to get into that school, and at young age, with all the musical subjects there. Of course, violin was my priority. And I've been to visiting concerts, symphony concerts, or opera productions a few times each month since my early childhood. That was a great way of education, just to see and hear the orchestras and be part of that. And I started playing in orchestra at that music school in age of 15, so it's about more than 40 years ago, believe it or not. I've been in orchestra, and my first position was principal second violinist in that high school orchestra.
Wow, that's quite big shoes to fill on your first assignment.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, and of course, I went to university to do my master's in music and violin performance, and I got both teaching and orchestra certificate, and both fields were interesting for me, teaching and performing music. If you're a musician, of course, there's many different ways to communicate with people, and one of them is teaching, the other one is performing. So I also learned conducting at school in 3 years of mostly choral conducting, but then with various orchestras, I've been to conducting master classes, so symphony conducting. So I was lucky to attend that and learning from masters how to conduct. That was interesting experience in several countries, mostly in Italy, in Austria, in Vienna, and Siena, the Accademia Chigiana. I've been there for 4 summers, and it was a wonderful education with great artists coming from different countries to perform, to teach. And I was just in the food violin section. That was a wonderful experience. I studied with a great violinist from Germany, specifically Bach. His name was Wolfgang Marschner. He's still alive. He's probably in his 90s. That was just a master class, but my main teacher in Sofia, his name is Bojan Nechev. He was student of David Oistrakh, people of David Oistrakh. He studied in Moscow for 4 years, just after World War II. And
So would you say Oistrakh is like your violin, one of your violin grandfathers?
yes,
Nice.
exactly. Well, so my teacher was there in Moscow while Oistrakh was working on the Shostakovich Concerto No. 1 for violin, and one of the the interesting fact was he performed, my teacher performed Prokofiev's Concerto No. 1 while Prokofiev was in the concert hall in Moscow.
Oh, wow.
His music was banned at that time. Anyway, these are interesting facts. But so this person was able to teach me a lot about violin, and I was really thankful. After graduating with my masters, things changed in the country, and the communist system collapsed. So there was a big change, and I already got my first position in orchestra, professional orchestra. That was more than 30 years ago in first violin section, and also full-time violin teacher at the music school in Sofia, National Music School. But at some point, I realized I need to go back to school because all these political changes. It's hard to understand what's happening all around. And I went to law school. I decided to study law, and I
Wow.
graduated. There was another 5 years, 6 years of my life
That's a
studying
left
law.
turn. That's a big change for sure.
Yeah, big change. But the music took over again. So the more I studied law, the more I want to play music again. So I said,
That
no,
says something,
there's
hey?
no reason to be a lawyer. I tried my best. I was 1 year in the court, apprentice lawyer, but it it was not as enjoyable as playing music. So, and I think I can be more helpful to people around me if I play music or teach music rather than being one of these, so many lawyers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So finally, so I had a lot of concert tours in the meanwhile with various groups, mostly in first violin section, sometimes principal second, and for the last 5 years before I moved to Canada, I was mostly concert master of some big opera companies traveling across Europe and Asia. Um, performed in 12 countries in Europe, mostly Western European countries, and as well as South Korea and Japan. And they were cool. The tours were like 1 to 2 months long. Sometimes I was away for more than half a year from my country, and I got
Wow.
married.
So the further west you moved, the further east you also traveled and toured.
Yeah.
That's really widening that scope. That's amazing.
So I traveled in different directions, and I got married. That's a different chapter of my life. I met the woman of my life at the university in the law school. Probably that was the best thing uh, for me, which happened in the law school. And so we married before we graduated. Actually, we got our first son on board, and so I decided. Well, I travel a lot, but I don't see my family, my children, and it's good to settle down one place. If you miss your children's birthdays and miss family, and while you're traveling around the world, you can keep traveling for the rest of your life. But if that's what you want to do,
Hmm.
but maybe it's time to settle down. I turned 40 at that point. That was like a tipping point. Um, so I decided to change again the direction, and choose a place in the world which would be the best for the best place for raising my kids. And we have a quiet life, relatively quiet, but more settled. Um, yeah. So that was my choice at that time. An opportunity appeared. That was the position for concert master in the Clown Symphony. There was an opening, and I applied, and I was accepted. I sent my recordings, and I came for a tryout, and I got the position in 2005. I moved to Canada.
So in 2005, you made the move to Canada. I'm just curious to know, so you're in Europe, you've got this active career, but you're looking at changing things up, settling down a little bit, finding a home base. So why Canada? Why BC? And more specifically, why in the interior in Kamloops?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I love nature. I love mountains. I'm not a big city guy, so definitely I've been to most big cities for work for months in Europe or Asia, the Far East, and I always want to escape from the big city. My first wish is I want to be away from that civilization, just be close to nature. And yeah, BC is the greatest place I think in the world. One can be. The climate is amazing. You have four seasons. The nature all around is so spectacular. You can travel for miles and miles, and sometimes you don't meet people, but you're part of nature. And that
Yeah.
was my choice. I actually, in fact, before graduating in my master's, I made a list of small cities with orchestras closer to mountains.
Aha, very
Was my
good.
list. And
Yeah.
I didn't know about Kamloops at that time, but there was mostly Bulgarian cities, I must say, because I was young and I didn't know about the entire
Right.
world. But hey, I found Kamloops. That's the place. And BC in general. But later on, I found the Kootenays too. That was a bonus.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. We'll be talking about the Kootenays a little bit more shortly.
Yeah.
Just before we do, so since living in Canada, you've been here for about 15 years now. What highlights would you say really stick out for you over the past few years of making music, raising a family, and all those sorts of things here in interior BC?
Well, as I mentioned, I started as a concert master of the piano symphony in 2005, but then I was on work permit at the beginning. I was not allowed to work for other employers for a couple of years, actually. But after that, so we became permanent residents in my family as well, and citizens, Canadian citizens. That of course opened the door for more work opportunities, and I became a member of the Okanagan Symphony in 2006, my first concerts, and again in 2006 I was invited to perform a solo with the Symphony of the Kootenays. That was my first impression from Symphony of the Kootenays. I can talk about that later on.
Absolutely.
I started working with the Prince George Symphony, and their concert master resigned for a year or two, and I became associate concert master of the Prince George Symphony for a couple of years. Then Opera Kelowna was created, and I was the first concert master of Opera Kelowna for 3 years. So many operas played with the Pacific Baroque Orchestra in Vancouver and Victoria once, twice, and then the Vancouver Island Symphony several times.
Nice.
So all these orchestras gave me an impression from the concert life in the province and connection with many musicians, wonderful musicians across the province, and it was a wonderful experience.
Nice, yeah. And of course, traveling, you're no stranger to traveling, but it's probably very different traveling around Europe where you're going from major center to major center within an hour or two, versus here you can drive for 8 hours and you haven't hit a city yet. So was that sort of a different experience for you? And of course, dealing with winters, which are probably a little different than
Yeah,
some of the new
yeah,
experience
that's
over
quite
there.
a different experience, but it's always nice. I traveled through huge mountains and mountain passes, and it's so beautiful. I can just travel for hours and it does not make me tired. If I have to drive for a couple of hours in Lower Mainland, Vancouver, mostly like I cannot imagine driving every day through Vancouver. That would be my end. I can only
Yeah,
survive for a week, and that's going to be the end of it.
I know
But
when
I can travel through the Kootenays or the interior of BC like every day. I don't mind.
yeah. Yeah, I know when we first started working together more intensely, one of the first conversations we had was about travel, and I was traveling a ton at that time as well. And I thought, boy, I've really met a kindred spirit here because I agree. Like when you're traveling through these beautiful vistas, and no piece of road is the same for more than 5 minutes. Yeah, it really does energize you, and it's almost becomes like a meditation, right? Like
Yeah,
you get that time to yourself to just reflect or just be in awe of everything around you. It's quite
yeah,
exciting.
yeah. It's great. Or
Nice,
sometimes they're difficult. They're challenges.
of
Winter time
course.
specifically. Sometimes the travel gets doubled the time you expect because of closing of mountain passes and stuff. You have to drive around, but this is part of the experience.
It is, and it's also part of the way of life versus the cities. We kind of understand that things happen, and if you're late for a rehearsal because the road was closed, you don't lose your job. Whereas in the city, they don't want to hear your excuses. It's you got to be there
Yes.
on time, no matter what. So it definitely changes everybody's outlook and how we interact with each other. Um, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about this first experience you had with the Symphony of the Kootenays
Yeah.
in 2006. That's right. You were playing
Yeah,
solo.
2006. That was the fall, October 2006. In fact, at that time, Bruce Dunn was the music director of the Symphony of the Kootenays, and
That's right.
he was the music director of the Camel Symphony at the same time. So he invited me to play Mozart Concerto Number 5 as a soloist of the Symphony of the Kootenays, which I just performed with the Camel Symphony
Nice.
um, at, at the same time. So that was a wonderful experience. Of course, traveling to at that time to the Kootenays, we didn't have contact in Cranbrook. This first time it was my first visit in Trail,
Right.
2006, and Golden, these two places. It was wonderful. The orchestra was great. People were so nice, and the audience. I was so impressed. So, how warm the audience was, how welcoming, and the musicians, um, how friendly relationship we all were able to develop right away.
Yeah, that's something we certainly find no matter what community in the Kootenays we're playing in, whether it's Cranbrook, Kimberley, or even at the far reaches of our catchment, which is of course Trail being the farthest west that we go, and Golden the sort of farthest east and north that we go. People just so warm and so grateful to have an experience like that. It's really heartwarming to be able to provide that and be a part of that experience.
Yeah, I just after this first appearance in the Kootenays, the Symphony of the Kootenays, I was invited several times throughout the years later to just to be to help out in the food banning section. It was also a wonderful experience. Then I, of course, performed many times in Cranbrook and Kimberley and various other places. Every time really enjoyable. Uh, that was
Yeah.
yeah, peace.
And of course, throughout the years, I know I joined the symphony as principal cellist the year after your concerto, so we missed each other that year. But I do recall a few times where you were invited by at then the time the concertmaster Wendy Herbison to take her seat and lead the orchestra. And then fast forward about 10 years later, and here you are with us more permanently. So. What was the experience of auditioning and sort of coming out to fill up this position? What was that like for you?
Oh, that was a wonderful experience again. I had only wonderful expectations, and so it was like another dream which came true. Just being more often in the Kootenays, I think that was I wanted to
Yeah,
be to be there more as many times as possible. Playing with these people, working with you specifically, having a conductor who is a performer, a musician, orchestral musician, chamber musician. It's not just somebody who studied conducting in school, uh, but being a performer on stage, that makes a huge difference to me. So I was pleased that I had this opportunity, and I'm lucky that I got the position at that time in 2016, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes,
that was
precisely.
the year. Yeah.
Yes, and since then, 5 years ago, yeah, we've been working together, and not only in the Kootenays. Actually, we've been sometimes sharing stage with the Kamloops Symphony and the Okanagan Symphony because of your visits to these places.
Yes.
But,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I always try and keep my hand in as a player as well, because I think as a music director, it's so important to have that perspective. And it is part of the way I approach the podium and approach the stage. I try to treat it as a chamber music experience, including me as one of the musicians. So I'm glad to hear that that's something you appreciate.
yeah.
And
That makes a huge difference. Huge difference to musicians to know, to feel that the music director is one of them.
something that I've really enjoyed from my experiences of traveling around BC, and while concurrently being a conductor of an orchestra here and also playing under other conductors, is to really get that opportunity to look at myself from that perspective, and sort of see, okay, what are these other people doing that maybe I can incorporate or learn from. I think that's really important to constantly be improving. Chamber music's a big thing for you, and I think that again is, especially with these smaller orchestras, a really interesting way of bringing the experience into the way we lead and play with a large ensemble like an orchestra. But you're really involved in chamber music, in both the Kamloops, mainly in the Kamloops area, I'm assuming. But we also have had a few experiences here in the Kootenays doing chamber music together. I know your group has been brought down from the Kamloops area to perform here in Nelson before. Um, we'd love to see you come out to the East Kootenays as well sometime. But you and I've actually performed together and worked together in chamber music. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about that?
All chamber music has been always part of my life since a young age. This is a great way of making music with people when there is no one person who is always the leader. Um, it's more democratic form of making music together. If everybody can share what they know, what they can with the others, and everybody is valued. So that's something which always fascinated me. And after moving to Kamloops, I realized there is need of um, creating a form um, opportunity to do that more often, more regularly. In so there was a time when musicians were open to starting a new collective, and that was the Chamber Music of Camels, which was established 2008. And I was thankfully we had this opportunity to play with you, work with you in Nelson for a couple of summers at the mountainside um, camp, um, teaching and playing together for a week each summer.
Yeah, that's always a highlight of my year as well. Every summer we have a strings camp here that happens in Nelson called Mountainside, and we, for the last few years, have had Svetozar involved as our violin teacher. And I know our violin students really perked up and enjoyed having you involved. And I've gotten nothing but great comments about your teaching style and your approach, and um, it just, you bring such a different dimension to that, which is really, really wonderful. And of course, we've also gotten a chance through that program to perform on stage and play chamber music together, which I think really, really lends to our relationship as concertmaster and music director. In that, we've sat side by side on stage, we've communicated through music without words, and that I felt that when we're on stage too. The same thing. I give you that same look as when we're about to do an up bow together, as when we're
Yeah,
about to do a pickup together, and I've got a baton instead of a bow. It's just such a nice. It feels comfortable to have that relationship. So
yeah.
hopefully we can have that opportunity. Of course, last year we didn't, but maybe this summer or a summer soon we'll get to play together on stage here as well through that program. You play in basically, play as a regular in three different orchestras throughout the region. And I think a lot of people, I know myself as well, I'm always looking at the Kamloops Symphony and the Okanagan Symphony as orchestras that are doing similar things that we are, and I'm always learning from them, and seeing what they're doing that we can adopt and make work and adapt in our area of the province. What similarities and maybe some points that distinguish distinguish each orchestra from the others would you say are sort of important to be aware of or to note?
Yes, there are some similarities and of course some differences. It's not just geographically, but the audiences are all different as well. And the Okanagan area, for example, there are more people, and it, it's easy access to concert hall for most of them. There are a lot of music lovers and supporters of music in general, a bigger population. That makes things easier. The level, of course, is professional. Number of professionalists who are members of the core. There is a season happening. Um, of course, with the COVID, things are quite different. Mm, but there is a concert season in both Okanagan Symphony and Kamloops Symphony. The Okanagan Symphony season was delayed. It started in January. It's going to continue later through the summer. So a late start, but there is a guaranteed number of services.
Right.
That
Yeah,
people,
that's a big point of distinction, I would say, between the Symphony of the Kootenays and these other orchestras. Of course, they have larger population bases, so more potential audience to come and watch. Of course, they have a much larger seasons. So with Symphony of the Kootenays, we tend to have 4 to 5 presentations per year. What are the other orchestras like? Are they around 8 or 10? Would you say?
yes, Prince George Symphony is pretty much the same situation. It's considered professional orchestra with one of the professional orchestras in the interior. It's about the same level. Of course, a lot of musicians coming from the lower mainland. Most of the musicians coming to Kamloops, members of the Kamloops Symphony, are coming from the lower mainland. So the local musicians are a minority in the orchestra
Right.
because it's a smaller place. Kamloops is
Yeah.
relatively
What's the population of Kamloops? Around 90,000?
about 90,000.
Right. So much larger than Cranbrook.
Yes,
Yeah.
much
Cranbrook's
larger,
around
but still,
25.
we don't have. We have only a handful of musicians here. Local musicians who are considered professional musicians, and the rest of the professionals are coming from either from the Okanagan or from the Lower Mainland, and vice versa. Musicians from Kamloops travel to the Okanagan to perform. So there's a lot of traveling happening, but with the Symphony of the Kootenays, that's what I enjoy is the opportunity to work with musicians from the other side of the mountain, the northern side of the Rocky. Right?
Right.
Great musicians, which for them is too far maybe to travel. They used to travel in the past to Kamloops and Okanagan, but in the last few years, the travels were, of course, not as easy for some of them because of several reasons. Mm, So this opportunity to work with other musicians from with different experience, that's really fascinating. And of course, we don't have as many programs with this Symphony of the Kootenays, but that make this program special, unique. Every program is very unique, and you need to do your best because there are not as many opportunities. You have to do your best while you're there, and the audience
Absolutely.
appreciate that. I feel every time the appreciation from board members, from volunteers, from those who build you. He built a friendly relationship with people, which is it's very, very, very nice.
Yeah,
That's
I
a
mean,
big
I hear that
part.
all the time from people that travel from only a few hours away within the Kootenays or within BC to the people that travel the long distances from southern Alberta and elsewhere in BC, like yourself. Um, that the people in Cranbrook and the Kootenays are always so welcoming, and we have such a fantastic group of support that engages with us and not just comes to our concerts, but of course provides the billeting and
Yeah,
all the extra things that make a community really welcoming, which is one thing I've always found about Cranbrook and the area is that we're always feel made to feel very welcome, which is so
yes,
nice.
and also Nelson, I must say, Nelson and Roston, this area is well, wonderful people.
Of course, yeah, yeah. Well, that's why I've chose to make my home here. Great. Well, thank you, Svetozar. That's really, really fascinating stuff. And I think we're going to now move along to the second segment of the show, which, of course, is musical performances. So This is a new thing for us, and we're just sort of managing the challenges of not being able to get together and perform. Svetozar has a few videos that he'd like to share with us that he has recorded. Some are more recent than others. But the first one we're going to listen to is, when was this recording made?
That was recorded actually in January this year.
Okay, so pretty recent.
Yeah, very recent. This is one of the last videos I recorded in a concert in Kamloops and Kamloops United Church, part of the chamber music series of the chamber music of Kamloops.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a very short piece.
Yeah, this is a pretty important piece to you. Svetozar is going to perform for us the Flight of the Bumblebee, which of course is a very well-known work and played by almost every single instrument. It seems to be almost like a rite of passage as a performer. Tell us about your experience with this piece.
Yeah, this is an arrangement by Jacek Heifetz, and I heard this arrangement many years ago when I was a child and never had a chance to see the music, the sheet music. I only heard recordings of Jacek Heifetz or Michael Robin, all these masters of violin. And finally, the first time I moved, I came to Vancouver. That was 2005. On my way to Kamloops, friends of mine met me there, and they want to introduce me, show me the city, some significant places in downtown Vancouver. And we visited the music store, of course, full of all kind of music. And they said, "Oh, would you be interested in choosing one piece of music? I would like to give it to you as a gift for your as a newcomer to Canada." I said, "Okay, because I had a very long flight from Europe to to Vancouver. It was like a 12-hour flight. I said, how about the Flight of the Bumblebee? I guess something was buzzing in my head probably from the plane. And they said, yes, here is the Flight of the Bumblebee, Jacek Heifetz. I got this piece of music, and of course I traveled to Kamloops on the next day. And I just rented a place, an apartment downtown Kamloops, and there was nothing but a chair, a table, and the Flight of the Bumblebee right on the table. Why I should learn this piece, because I had a lot of time at that time. I had only 2 students to begin with, and only one concert monthly with the Kamloops Symphony, something like that. So I had time to learn the Flight of the Bumblebee. So I learned it back then, and I performed it several times later on. So that's a special connection. I have a special connection to this piece, and I decided to do it again this year, to record it, and almost 15 years later.
Okay, nice. Well, let's listen to it now. This is the Jacek Heifetz arrangement of Flight of the Bumblebee, Svetozar Vutev on violin. Wonderful. That was The Flight of the Bumblebee with Cvetozar Vutev on violin and Naomi Coutier on piano from Kamloops. So, playing lots of fast pieces, or of course, lots of orchestral music that requires technique, like a piece like that, to be in your repertoire. What about lyrical playing? When you're playing something lyrically in an orchestra, there's always a challenge, of course, coordinating with, say, 5 or 6 other violin players. Would you say that's something that you have to deal with as a concertmaster?
Yes, actually, working on sound production and sound quality, that's a whole another experience. It's
Of
not just playing
course.
fast passages, trying to stay in tune, but unifying the vibrato, for example, or dynamical changes altogether. It requires a lot of concentration. And the violin and string instruments, the violin family, they were made at first place to support singers, to create a sound similar to the human voice. And that's something which is not easily achieved without effort. You have to really be careful how you bow, how you move your bow arm. It's not just move your left hand fingers, but how to produce the sound. So you have to basically memorize some sections to be able to focus on the sound production.
Of course.
So it's
Yeah.
something quite
So
different.
we're going to listen to a lyrical work by one of my favorite composers, Elgar. You want to tell us just a little bit about this piece and where and why it was recorded?
Oh, this piece was recorded just a few years ago, again in Camels with my friend Dmitry Teziev, who actually is a piano player. The person who first mentioned to me about British Columbia, he moved to Camels before me. He moved to Canada a couple of years before I moved, and he always told me he used to come back to the country, to Bulgaria, and we used to go to the mountains, of course, because we both love mountains. And he told me back then, you know, British Columbia is probably the only place you feel in the world you can feel at home because it's so beautiful. And Bulgaria is like a small size BC. This is this is how it to me it looks like.
Hmm.
The lovely mountains and the sea cold and the climate pretty similar too. So he was right. So I play with Dimitri quite often, and he lives in Kansas. Yes, he moved to Montreal, then he moved to Edmonton. He studied in Edmonton, his master's, and then he moved to Kansas and started piano teaching and performing. And then I came after, and here we are again in
Nice.
chamber music. The title of the work is Salut d'amour. Elgar composed this piece as a gift to his future wife.
Nice. Lovely. All right, here's Salut d'amour by Elgar. Beautiful, very lovely. That was Salut d'amour by Elgar. And we have time for one more excerpt. And I think we've got Svetozar on the line here, so we're going to capitalize on that. Svetozar sent me about 15 videos to go through, again, preparing for this show today. And of course, many of our listeners who've seen me on stage know that I love playing folk music and other styles of music, not just classical. Some people may not know that about you, Svetozar. Do you want to just share with us a little bit about your passion for playing other styles of music, and where that's led you?
Yeah, there is so many different styles of music, and yeah, music is great in any form. Um, I don't play hard rock at the moment. I used to play actually in a rock band when I was a student. I played bass guitar, electric bass, but that
Nice.
was just a short time.
Yeah.
But other than that, what I found in Camus and BC later on after I moved over here, the bluegrass style. I didn't know anything about bluegrass, but it's such a great style of music. It gives you a chance to improvise, which we don't often do as classical musicians. We have not been trained to improvise in classical music, except for Baroque. If you play Renaissance and Baroque music, then you're supposed to improvise a little bit, but it's something what not too many people know how to teach you. But the bluegrass, there's a lot of elements of jazz and blues, of course, mixed up with traditional music, and that was such a lovely experience. I was approached by local musicians here, a banjo player in town, who I met in my youngest child's kindergarten. That's interesting. So he came with his banjo. Said, "Why we don't play together some music?" And he learned that I'm a fiddle player. I said, okay, I'd like to learn something. And the only piece of music I knew at that time was, I think, Red River Valley and all Susanna. Since then, actually, I learned tons of music, and we did two recordings, bluegrass music recording. And I was lucky to be joined by my kids. Both my sons, they started to play music, and one of them played mandolin, the other one guitar, and they both sing wonderfully, and harmonica, multi-harmonica. So we actually did a lot of performances together and with other musicians as well. But such a lovely experience to be able to play with your kids when they're not kids anymore. We still play together. That's
Hmm.
something which stay with us for a long time. So that's my experience in bluegrass. It's just it's another niche. You
Of
can
course. That's fun and exciting, and so much fun that you can work with your family. How special is that? Great. Well, we're not gonna be hearing a bluegrass piece here. This is actually a string quartet.
this piece actually the title is drummer, which means the drummer.
Ah, okay.
It's an arrangement by the Danish string quartet. It's a famous string quartet based in Copenhagen. So they did set of arrangements of music from Denmark and Norway and some obscure islands around. So it's a lovely original Celtic music, I'd say, from Europe, not North American Celtic. Yeah. So one of these pieces it brings a lot of energy, uh, energizing the performer and the listener at the same time. Uh, so we had got this arrangement through Martin Kratky, one of my friends, a cello player, who suggested that, and we did a recording of this piece with the Sycamore String Quartet, the group which I've been working with for 8 years already. We had a lot of concerts together and recordings, and we've been to Nelson actually with the group performing
That's right.
concerts and educational concerts as well.
Nice. Excellent. All right. Well, here we go with drummer. Okay, that was the Sycamore String Quartet with Svetozar Vutev as first violin. And that pretty much wraps up our performance segment of the show tonight. And really, we're getting to the end of the show altogether. So again, Svetozar, I want to thank you so much for making the time to be involved with this and help us initiate this program.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me. And I'm really looking forward to play again with the Symphony of the Kootenays and the Yorbaton, play chamber music with you at any time, any possibility. I'm really looking forward to that. I hope it's going to happen soon.
Absolutely. Not quite soon enough, but soon, we hope. Thank you, Svetozar. Svetozar Vutev, concertmaster of our Symphony of the Kootenays. Now, the Symphony Kootenays has been working behind the scenes, and we are excited for the opportunity to present Symphony on the Mountain again this summer in July at the Kimberley Ski Hill. Come over to our website, sotk.ca, for more information. Again, if you're watching this show on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button below so you can follow all of our content and stay up to date. If you enjoyed today's show, please click the like button and leave a comment. We want to thank everyone involved in creating everything we do here at the Symphony of the Kootenays. A big thank you to the BC Arts Council for being so supportive through this pandemic. It's such a relief to know we have such a great organization working on behalf of the performing arts in our province. We also want to really thank the community that we serve, which is the Kootenays and Cranbrook, and all of the support we get from our board members, to our volunteers, to the people that help bill it, and especially to you, our audience. Please do feel free to get in touch with us through our website or right here on YouTube, and give us comments so we can help improve the service that we provide to our community. Thanks again for tuning in to The Green Room. Again, I am your host, Jeff Faragher. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to be having another great show. So please stay tuned and watch our schedule for more information. Thanks again. Take care.